Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new Takara Tomy figure to take a look at, and not only a brand new Takara Tomy figure, but we have a very interesting species from them. This is actually a species I have never seen in figure form before, so definitely something I'm excited about. We have the Fukuivenator, and I think I pronounced that correctly. It's a little bit tricky, and I'm not too familiar with this species. But you can see the box art looks really cool. We've definitely got a nice shot here of the figure itself. And again, pretty much your standard when it comes to your Takara Tomy style figures and style boxes and everything. Really nice shot here on the side for sure of the dinosaur, kind of in like its natural habitat. And then not really a whole lot going on this side, but pretty much the same sort of image here, just a different pose or different positioning for the dinosaur here on the back. But it looks super cool. This is another figure that I was able to acquire thanks to my good friend Dino Mike Mac, who has absolutely been hooking me up with so many awesome figures lately that I usually don't have the chance to get here in the United States. So I'm super psyched to pop this one open and check it out. So let's do that right now. And here is the figure itself. And let's see if it'll stand. Yes, there we go. It does stand. And it looks pretty darn nice, actually. You know, it's, again, a species I've never seen made before, so straight away that's really exciting, and I think they did a pretty good job when it comes to your casual, standard Takara Tomy type figure. For the most part, I think it looks quite nice, and there are actually cards contained within the set, which you can see here. We've got one card in English, which is a plus for me, and that tells you a little bit about the dinosaur right there, which is pretty cool, and definitely neat that they include these to sort of teach you about it a little bit, and of course, you know, inform you about the species of dinosaur you are entering into your collection. So definitely really cool on the part of Takara Tomy. But I'm really psyched to take a closer look at this one, so let's jump to it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Fukuivenator, you can see it looks pretty good. You've got some nice looking detailing, some decent texturing to the skin, though it's very fine. But you can also see, which you can also see, there's paint on my finger because I was painting recently, but you can see that the head sculpt is very small if it can fit within my finger so easily. And that shows again, I think, how impressive the actual fine detail there of the face is, considering how small the head is. You've got the nostrils sculpted out right there. You have a nice dark tone of blue leading from the eye up into the palate. You also have a lighter tone of blue up here on the top of the head. And then you have a very dark gray, it looks like there, kind of running along the lower part of the snout as well as the lower jaw, which is pretty cool. We do have an articulated jaw for the figure, which is always fun. You can see the inside of the mouth sports a nice looking tongue sculpt. Some okay detail in there, but nothing that's really, you know, incredibly impressive. But the teeth look pretty good. You know, they're all sculpted fairly nicely. A little bit of sloppiness on the lower jaw. You can kind of see the paint has run under the tongue. But for the most part, you know, it looks pretty decent, especially on the upper side. But the articulated jaw does work very nicely. You can see it moves pretty much wherever you would like. The eye is painted with a very nice yellowish tone, given a nice black pupil. As you begin to move back here into our nice long neck of our dinosaur, you can see we transition back to that darker blue fully. It almost looks like we might have some slight difference in color there, but it's a little hard to completely pick up on it. We also have some reddish tones here on the underside of the throat that looks really cool, really vibrant reddish tone here for the underside of the throat. And I think in that reddish area you can pick out how nice the actual feather detail of that area looks, because primarily the dinosaur seems to have a very fine feathering over it, and some areas are a little harder to notice it, but right there in that reddish area I think it shows up quite nicely. We do have more articulation as you move down. You've got a nice spot of articulation here in the neck, which is pretty cool. Get a nice, you know, very upright pose, or kind of a drinking or feeding pose down there. As you move down into the body, you continue to see again some more feather detail. You also see that we now transition to a black for the majority of the body, which also looks pretty nice. As you lead down into the arm, though, you can see some nice muscle definition, but you can also take notice to a gorgeous area of plumage for the dinosaur as you move down. And we have a similar bluish tone to what we see on the neck there for the feathers of the arm. And if you get nice and close, you can see how nice those feathers look. They actually look really, really well done. There's also a light variation of a gray that runs out there on the
edge of the outer line of feathers right there, just to add a little extra color. I think that looks really, really nice, especially in comparison and contrast to the black. And as you lead out into the hands, you've got some nice scoots running down the fingers, and then you can also see the nails are unpainted, kind of, because they're basically just the same color as the hands, which is a black, so I guess they felt the need to not really paint it because you pretty much have that color going on already. If you look at the underside, unfortunately, there's no variation of color for the feathers. You can see it's just black entirely here on the underside of the figure. And past this point, we pretty much have no alternate coloration to it, because as you move back, you can see the thigh and everything looks pretty nice muscle definition. You can see the knee and calf as you move down. And then as you lead down into the foot sculpt, you can see again some nice scoots down the toes, and you can also see the sculpt here for the nails looks pretty good. But again, no variation of color for the nails. It's basically just the black. You have dew claws and stuff for the figure. You do have another area of articulation right there where you can move the legs forward and back, and of course the same for both legs. And the arms, unfortunately, do not have articulation. But as you move back and we continue to lead out into the tail, again, still no variation of color. It's just the blackish tone, which still looks pretty good. You do have an area of articulation for the tail, which is like your classic ball joint from Takara Tomy, though I will say this one looks a little bit less obnoxious, I think, than they usually do. It's just kind of a little bit more hidden. Usually they're super out there, super obvious, but they did a better job, I think, on this one. But you can articulate the tail around a little bit and swivel it again, considering it is a ball joint. You can, turn that tail all over the place, but you continue to have that nice feathering as you lead out, as well as a nice curve to the tail. Nothing overly dramatic, just a nice slight curve. And of course, you're going to see pretty much the same thing here for the opposing side. Nothing different really going on here. And of course, it is a fully posable, well, not fully posable, but for the most part, a posable figure. So a lot of the Takara Tomy figures kind of come in neutral positions, and then you can kind of alter the positioning a little bit as far as the articulation goes. But honestly, I think it looks really nice from both sides. Definitely another super cool addition to the Takara Tomy line.
The figure does seem to have some slight balancing issues. You can see it kind of falls back on the tail a lot. You just got to position it nicely there. You can see it stands, but it wobbles a little bit, so it doesn't stand beautifully. Mine may have just warped in the packaging. I'm not too sure. As far as a length goes, I guess if you want a very accurate length, as far as the absolute possible length you can get, we could stretch the head out there and then get a length to the tail. You're looking at about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. And then if we want to position it at its probably highest point, it's going to be tough to get it to stay there, because of the fact that it's leaning back. It really wants to, let's just kind of turn it around, and we'll just do it like this. I'll just hold it in the spot. So the highest point, if we have it standing naturally and the head up very high, you're looking at about 2 3/4 inches or around 7 centimeters. Now it stands, but for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Golovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Takara Tomy Fukuivenator, and you can see again basically what the size is. It's not a big figure, it's not a big species of dinosaur in general, so you really shouldn't expect a big figure, but it's kind of right there in your standard Takara Tomy size range. And to further show you that, there is a Takara Tomy Jurassic World Tyrannosaurus Rex next to the Fukuivenator, and you can see a pretty similar size. Obviously the Rex is a little bit bigger, but this shows you that the figure in general isn't far off from your average Takara Tomy size range. And to further show you that, we've actually got the Therizinosaurus from Takara Tomy as well standing in for another comparison. I don't feel like we really need too many comparisons for this dinosaur, because at this point we've reviewed so many Takara Tomy figures, we should be pretty much well aware, I think, of the size of these figures at this point. So this brand new Takara Tomy Fukuivenator is pretty darn cool, honestly. I'm actually a fan for sure of this one. You know, once in a while Takara Tomy will bust out a new figure and it's not that great, but it seems like every so often they kind of bring out some really obscure species, and they usually end up being really, really well done. Same case here for this one. It's a gorgeous sculpt, it really is. It's got a lot of really nice fine detail. Pretty small figure, of course, but A lot of very impressive detailing for it considering its size. We have pretty much a fully feathered look for it. I'm kind of on the fence as far as the tail goes. I almost feel like I wish there was a little more plumage out there, some sort of a display of plumage out on the end of the tail, but I've seen this dinosaur kind of reconstructed in both ways, where it has tail feathers and then sometimes where it doesn't, so I guess it's really your preference, but I think they did a good job regardless, and a very nice looking paint scheme for it as well. Nice and flashy, but at the same time very natural, and considering the dinosaur isn't super huge, it's a little on the smaller side, the darker tones would definitely help to conceal the dinosaur if it were trying to hide, but at the same time, the flashy tones maybe could be a color that could attract a mate, so you have a good bit of realism, I think, as far as the coloration goes, and a lot of really nice application of the paint, very smooth transitions, again, flashy enough looking that it really draws your attention in and makes you take notice to the figure. I kind of wish there was maybe a little extra color out there on the tail, or something like maybe like a bluish tone to kind of end of the tail or something, just to give it a little extra color, but it still looks pretty good as far as I'm concerned. On top of that, you've got some pretty fun articulation, maybe even a little more than you usually have when it comes to a Takara Tomy figure, so that is also a plus. And again, just in general, I'm a fan of this figure for sure, and again, it's an awesome species choice on the part of Takara Tomy that I have not had the pleasure of entering into my collection previously. So if you are interested in picking this up, odds are it'll begin showing up on AliExpress or maybe even eBay at some point in the very near future. I will try to find a link to include in the description, but I can't say for sure because I'm pretty sure this figure is pretty new, so it hasn't really begun showing up everywhere quite yet. But if I can find a link, I will add it in the description. Otherwise, definitely pick this figure up if you can find it, because it's another fun one from Takara Tomy. And also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.